is 9:30. It is time for KCIM Sports Rewind. Wow.
Sorry.
That was loud.
I didn't know you had my mic on yet.
Yeah, well, I do.
Okay.
And now I'm deaf. Thank you very much for that. I'm John Ryan.
I'm Jeff Blankman.
And we're minus one person here.
He's coming.
He's coming. He says he's on his way. Got caught by a train. So, Mason Nealon going to be here in a couple more minutes for KCIM Sports. I'm just shocked it's Tuesday already. I took yesterday off, so I'm like, I'm ill-prepared, even more than usual for today. I'm never prepared, but today more than ever.
Yeah, and I can understand that, and I'm scrambling a little bit right now because we were supposed to be having a guest at 9:30, and they must not be available because they're not answering. So I'm trying to still reach out to them and say, hey, we'd like to have you on. Can we get you there?
You know, those superintendents tend to get a little busy every once in a while. We planned on talking with Trevor Miller, superintendent of Audubon. They voted last night to join the Rolling Valley Conference. So that's going to be a bit of a shakeup there in the Western Iowa Conference. Has IKM Manning done anything yet? They
vote this coming Monday, and more than likely everything that I hear is this is going to be a package deal, that if one went, the other will go. So more than likely, the school board hasn't voted on it yet, but more than likely IKM Manning will probably be moving as well. But Audubon unanimously last night, from what I understand, voted to move over from the Western Iowa Conference to the Rolling Valley Conference. If anybody's not familiar, that's the conference with like Coon Rapids, Bayard, Glidden, Ralston, Arweva, Peyton, Sheridan out of our local area. You got CAM and those schools and Woodbine and those schools in that conference right now.
So basically every school from 30 on south is going to be part of that. And it only makes sense that both of them are going to move together. It wouldn't make sense if one of them were going to move and the other one didn't.
Yep.
And the conference is tending to move a lot more west anyway on those guys. So it was a lot more travel. Going to be a lot less travel for these guys playing in the Rolling Valley.
It is, and it'll probably be more schools more comparable with their size. You look at Trainer and Underwood and Tri-Center and some of those schools, they're starting to get bigger. The WIC last week sent out a big invite to like 8 or 10 different schools and stuff, so they're trying to grow. They're looking to get Clarinda and Shenandoah and Red Oak and some of those schools.
So they're looking to raid the Hawkeye 10.
They are, but they also are going after Panorama, ACGC, Earlham, Maple Valley, Anthenoto, Charter Oak, Ute. So they had about 8 to 10 different schools that they sent out invites to last week. So I think they did that in preparation probably of IKM Manning and Audubon both moving on. So it'll be interesting to see. I know a lot of people were tweeting out last night that the landslide has started. We talked about that a month or two ago, that once this move becomes official, you're probably, if you're a conference and you lose a school or two, you're definitely going after trying to find a school or two to replace those. And in today's world, you're probably going after more than that to make yourself even more viable.
It makes sense for Shenandoah, Clarinda, and some of those schools down there. It does not make any sense to me for Maple Valley, Anthenoto, and some of those conferences. But at some point, where do you go?
Right, absolutely. And for them, I that was kind of the outlier one for me. I thought it was a little bit of a surprise that they had gotten an invite. But I think part of it is that, they're going up against those schools up by around Sioux City that are getting bigger, and Maple Valley, Anthenoto, Charter Oak, Ute is not. So it's where do they feel like they can slide into until they feel like they can be competitive continuing to go north, or do they feel like they can be more competitive going to the south?
Mason Nealon back here with us again, and boy, I tell you what, that's going to be teams like Maple Valley, Anthenoto. If they decide to jump, that's going to be a meat grinder for those guys, having to travel down to Trainer and all of that.
And John Coach is ready, so whenever we can get a hold of her, Coach with Trevor. So.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
All right, you guys go ahead and talk.
Yes, but Mason, your thoughts on Audubon moving? That's what we were talking about.
It's not like I'm surprised, but when I even said it in the car last night when we heard the news coming back from Coon Rapids, it was like, I wasn't surprised, but it was just that, wow, it finally happened. So it's like it's here, it's over with, and now, like you said, it's kind of that landslide where once one team's going to go, now maybe you see IKM Manning go, and once they go, that leaves 2 spots open in the WIC. Maybe 3 or 4 teams fill that from either the Hawkeye 10 or something else, and then every conference is going to start slowly sending out invites here soon.
And I think John's almost got Trevor Miller hooked up here and on the air with us, and we've got a little back feed issue here that we'll have to get taken care of.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back with more KCIM Sports Rewind coming up.
Yep.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical therapy for any sports injury that may sideline your member of the team. Sports injuries can plague kids of all ages and keep them from playing the sport they love. Athletes will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
All right. Well, we welcome you back here to KCIM Sports Rewind as we try to figure out what's going on with our phone equipment.
Yeah, there's something strange going on. I'm getting some feedback. Trevor, can you hear us right now?
Yeah, I can hear you. The feedback isn't like it was a couple seconds ago. That's better. So I was trying to figure out. Maybe you just didn't want to talk to me.
Well, we pride ourselves on our professionalism here at KCIM. So you guys last night, Superintendent Miller, voted to join the Rolling Valley Conference. It really wasn't much of a discussion. It was 5-0. Tell us how it went last night.
Well, it kind of been an item. We brought it to them, and we had Jeremy Christensen, the superintendent of Boyer Valley, kind of leads the Rolling Valley, kind of the soup area, since I'm shared between both conferences, so I've kind of stayed out of that area. So he came in March and kind of went over the highlights of pros and cons of the conference, and then we sat on a little bit in April, and Sean gave some more data and information, size, location, travel, who we play, who we don't play, in May, and also the community was allowed to give more comments to the board, come talk to us, and so it's been a process. And last night, everybody kind of had their questions answered. We discussed, the new legislation about sharing in the 25%, but nobody's really sure what that looks like. We also discussed that the WIC was being proactive now and inviting 10 teams out last week. So we wanted to make sure the board had all the information. They kind of went with it, and they're like, nope, it makes sense to join the Rolling Valley because, in district football, that's kind of who we play. That's kind of our competitors. That's, makes sense for us, and location travel is a lot better. The WIC's been a great conference for Audubon. It's just our size isn't increasing, and some of those schools are getting bigger and have more participation just because we don't have the numbers. So the board thought for travel and size-wise that it made the most sense for Audubon.
So financially, what does this mean for the Audubon School District? Is it a big impact for you guys?
No, financially it won't be a huge impact. It'll just be, hopefully, some of the games are closer so we get some more crowds. Because I know, like when we make the trip to Trainer, the trainer makes it here, it's a long trip. And a lot of times those are less gates just because, people have to get off earlier and have to be able to get there. And so now if we're traveling to Anita or Coon Rapids or, even Boyer Valley or Woodbine, it's a closer trip to where they could, still work their entire job and to be able to make there so that way they can support the kids. So it'll be less for transportation, but it's not a big financial gain one way or the other. So, it's just more based on opportunities for our kids and participation.
Trevor, Jeff Blankman here. Thanks again for joining us. It sounds like the travel probably was the biggest part of it. Is that true? And then how much of a role did maybe the competition level play into this decision as well?
Well, travel is a big part, because on a Tuesday night, you don't want to have your kids travel an hour and 45 minutes, get home like at midnight or whatever, because, we want to make sure they're student athletes and can focus on their studies and not be dragging the next day because, as some of our kids, not just ours, everywhere, they're here in the gym, working out, even lifting at 6 in the morning. And if they're not getting home till midnight, it's hard for them. It just wears on them. So we're just trying to, look at that aspect of it also. But numbers-wise, like if you look, like Mr. Burks put together our numbers, our beds are like roughly 120 or so, and we're kind of the smallest, and the WIC has kind of looked at new guidelines moving forward. It's not set in stone. It's just some guidance that they look at, like the minimum beds would be 140 and travels like an hour and 45. So we would have stayed grandfathered in because we have been in the conference a long time, but kind of they have the new guidelines moving forward, kind of that 140 number, and we are the only 8-man team in the conference. So it was just participation, and Mr. Burke showed comparisons by conference titles and, just how Audubon's done over the past 10 years. And, we've dropped enrollment here in Audubon. So, and numbers have just been a little less. So it's more on that. I'm just, trying to play schools more our size. I'm sure with the WIC, we'll still, play the Evocas, the Tri-Centers, and some of the closer ones in non-conference games because they're good rivalries and they've been good to us. So, it was a very tough decision. Like I said, the WIC, Audubon's been in it for a long time. And done a good job. It's just the landscape is changing for schools, and I mean, I know we're not the only one that's been looking and being invited to different things. So it'll be interesting, what happens over this summer.
Trevor Miller, with the superintendent with Audubon Schools, on the phone with us right now. Was there any argument against this? It sounds like there was so many reasons to make this move. Was there any viable argument to stay in the WIC conference?
Some of the argument was, that it's a highly competitive conference and it's good for our kids, during the regular season to, play like the Trainers, the Underwoods, the Riversides of the world that are having really good seasons, and have that competition during the season, and then be ready for districts. And we've kind of shown, that's good to have it already, but then how the state kind of seeds things where you're not. I mean, we can be a 500 team in the WIC and not have a very good seed for brackets and that. So the thing was make sure we'd been in the conference a long time. Kind of loyalty was some of the arguments, and also just the competitiveness and us having to always play up and play bigger schools. So that was the big one, just loyalty in that.
Trevor, with the WIC last week inviting 10 other schools to the league, did that impact you guys at all, or do you feel like the decision had already been pretty much made to go to the Rolling Valley?
I think it's been pretty much already made. I mean, if they're looking at a few of the schools, I mean, like if you look, I'll just use an example of Red Oak and Shenandoah. I think beds are at 221, 241, and say they join, that'd just be schools that are like almost, we're at 120, they're at 220. So, I mean, it's just another large number. So I'm not sure who is even interested in joining the WIC right now. I mean, they invited last week. They don't have to give an answer till August 1st. So ours was kind of already set before then. I just wanted to make sure that our board knew last night that had went out in case they hadn't seen it, and that the WIC was inviting other teams, so that way they had all the information. But I think they were pretty much decided, after the May meeting, we had the discussion, and Sean gave them additional facts and answered their questions that they needed. I think going in, they were pretty much decided, and there's going to have to be something that really came up that would change their mind.
Yeah, we've talked here on this show that this is going to trigger a lot more out there, other teams switching conferences, things like that. You got to love the situation you're going into with the Rolling Valley. It seems like this is going to be an incredibly stable situation for Audubon schools for a long time.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, that's kind of, we know part of the reason that since I'm with the Audubon Superintendent that we want to be proactive with the Rolling Valley because West Harrison is joining with Missouri Valley in activities. We wanted to make sure we added additional quality teams that would fit kind of the Rolling Valley mode, the same size, the same, geographics that we looked at. So I think this is really going to help us. I mean, I know we've invited a few other schools that have kind of said no, but that's okay because now we'll still have our, 9, which is a good solid number to have. And you just don't want to get below that 7 because then all of a sudden you're scrambling and trying to be reactive instead of proactive. So I think the switch will be very good. I think it'll help out for a lot of reasons. But, yeah, I look at it as a stable, great opportunity for our district.
Trevor, I know you can't speak for IKM Manning. I know you were soup there for a while as well, but you're no longer there. Everything I keep hearing is the two of you are going to be kind of a package deal. If one went, the other would go. What can you tell us about those kind of conversations?
Well, the reason we've had conversations like that is just because we are the two. We're close. I mean, we were our closest games playing each other. We kind of looked at, travel-wise. I mean, when both of us, every trip's going south and going west and that, so it's kind of just those discussions. I wouldn't say we're a package deal. I'd say it's up to their board. I know they're meeting next Monday, and I know Mr. McCarble's done a good job with Ms. Hughesman, or Dr. Hughesman on, giving the board the information, the stats, kind of like Mr. Burks did, and travel and that. So I think it'll be an interesting discussion. Like going into any board meeting, you're not sure what anybody's going to do. So, I mean, it's kind of up to them now. We made our decision, so they got to decide what's best for their district.
As you look at this, football's obviously different. They're in districts and all of that. But how does this affect the shared programs you have with Exira, Elkhorn, Kimballton? Is it going to affect that in those sports?
It won't affect them right now. That's why we're kind of looking at the 27-28 school year because we kind of were looking at some of our agreements and that come up. But no, like we'd already kind of talked to the Rolling Valley, hey, we are partners in this, and sometimes numbers justify it. And they're like, yeah, we know, because in some sports, other schools got to look as well. So right now, I don't think it'll have any impact. So if we need to keep sharing, we can, and we will. And so that was one of the discussions we had with the Rolling Valley to make sure, hey, we do partner in some activities, and we may have to continue partner activities. And as long as you know that ahead of time, it makes the scheduling okay. So that'll help. And then also, when you have a sharing, when one school's in one conference, one in the other. Now it's consistent in that it would still be in the Rolling Valley as a shared school. So I think it'll allow it for scheduling to be easier. So I don't think it'll have an impact when we need to share, and it was what's best for kids. We will continue to share.
Trevor, was that the biggest reason to make the move in the 27-28 school year, or what was that discussion all about?
The discussion, we brought it up, Mr. Burke brought it up in April, just due to it was going to be probably June before a decision was made. And why try to rush it? Because, I mean, ADs usually schedule at least a year to 2 years out, and we wanted to allow, us to get our schedules and, abide by our contracts and that. So it was more the timing, making sure that we could, get our schedules done, and then also size in some of our sharing agreements. We have some good numbers coming up in our younger classes, and we want to kind of see how those stay to make sure, we can look at different options moving forward. And it also will give, us and Exeter and Kimballton time, okay, what numbers do we have and how long do we need to keep partnering? Is this a long-term thing, or kind of like we're currently doing it every couple of years so we reevaluate? So that'll give us that option as well.
Well, are you going to miss the trips to Tri-Center and Logan Magnolia at all?
Well, I don't like sitting on a bus that long, and the car's not near as bad, so I don't mind, if it's a Friday night, but I don't like to see where our kids go down on a Tuesday or something like that, just because it is a long time and a long trip. So, I mean, I'm sure we'll still look at it because we have wrestling, and we'll still wrestle with Logan, and Logan's been a good partner. So, I mean, we'll probably look at still playing them some non-conference games and that. So, to say I'm going to miss going to Trainer, it's a long trip, but it's great competition. They have a great program, a great facility. So, I mean, it's nothing against them. It just made sense for our district.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It makes total sense for you, and it makes sense for ICAM Manning, but they're a separate district. They're going to have to make up their own decisions. Trevor Miller, once again, Superintendent of Audubon. Is there anything we missed as part of this vote that people maybe need to be aware of?
No, it was the Rolling Valley approached us earlier in the February, March, and because we're trying to be proactive, and we brought it to our board. I think the board did a very good job of asking questions, not just rushing into it. That way they could have community input and get things, done the right way instead of just saying yes or no. They wanted to, Mr. Burks did all the interviews with our coaching staff and that. So I think anytime a school's got to make a decision that has a lasting impact, I think it's got to be done like this, where it's taken an extended period of time. And we told the Rolling Valley we weren't going to have our decision by May because we were spending more time, investigating and making sure if we made a decision to switch that it was the right decision. So, no, I thought our board did a great job, and I think it'll be great for our students, but I'm still looking forward to through the next year and a half of being in the WIC and competing with those schools.
Trevor, I do understand, as you had mentioned earlier, that the Rolling Valley has other invites out besides ICAM Manning. If I understood correctly, Missouri Valley and Loma have both declined, but I've also heard some of the other schools that the WIC has now invited as well, Panorama, Earlham, ACGC. Any discussions, any thoughts, any knowledge on what's going on or the other schools that the Rolling Valley may be looking to add?
Right now, we're not sure in the Rolling Valley. We're kind of going to wait and see what happens next week with ICAM Manning to see where we stand for numbers going forward, and then we might reassess where we're at. I know the conference with Panorama, ACGC, Earlham, and that's had some additional changes. It was announced last week. Des Moines Christian is leaving to go to Little Hawkeye. And then I know Woodward Granger's looked at different options. So I think they're kind of sitting in a holding pattern because if those kind of larger schools leave, then they're kind of setting they'll have 9, and they kind of have a good number right now. So I think they're kind of staying where they're at, but I can't speak for them. I just know that they have a good group, and they're kind of waiting to see what some of the bigger schools will not do and what they want to do moving forward. So, I mean, I know everybody always brings up Van Meter, but I think they're pretty set right now for at least the next few years as they continue to grow, but that can never always change.
Absolutely. So, again, you got your vote. Your board voted 5-0 to join the Rolling Valley in the school year 2027 to 2028. Trevor Miller, the superintendent of Audubon, sorry about the feedback. Hope your ear isn't ringing too bad.
No, it's good. I appreciate you guys giving me a call.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Trevor Miller, once again, joining us on phone here from the Audubon School District, where they voted to join the Rolling Valley. Makes total sense. I mean, it's hard to argue not joining. It would have
Right.
been a tougher decision to say, no, we're not going to make that jump when you can travel up the road to Coon Rapids, to ICAM Manning, to Glidden Ralston, to Arweva. I mean, all those are just very short drives.
Yeah, even down to Cam
Yeah.
is a nice little haul for them and not very far. And I will say that, I'm not surprised by the fact that they're going. When I started hearing this talk back in February, I don't want to say what AD, but I was calling a basketball game one night, and in between games, I was running down to talk to the coaches, and the AD grabbed me and said, hey, just wanted to let you know these invites came in today, and here's the schools that have been invited, and we're certainly going to look at it. And, I was not surprised. It'll be interesting to see what ICAM Manning does. Like I said, certainly don't want to speak for them, but just in talking with people in the community, it sounds like that's probably going to happen. And then, Trevor brought up Van Meter. I'm hearing a lot of rumors that Van Meter may look to move to the Raccoon River Conference as they continue to grow here in the next few years. So we'll see what impact that could have.
Yeah, Mason, I mean, you look at that. Van Meter has no interest in joining a smaller conference. They want to get bigger. They want to join those tougher conferences. Raccoon River Conference seems to make the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough conference, though. The Raccoon River teams are always just growing. They're always getting more competitive. I mean, you look at some of the sports that we have in basketball. There was a couple years now where a Raccoon River team's always been in the state tournament. I mean, in football, the Raccoon River teams are good. Now looking at baseball, a lot of good competition as well. But I think that if Van Meter gets to the Raccoon River Conference, it's also going to look at it and say, maybe we have a lot of teams in this conference. Maybe we look to say, hey, there's a couple teams that maybe don't fit in the Raccoon River Conference anymore.
Yeah, there's going to be those schools that look at that too. So my ultimate question is, I mean, it seems to me like it's kind of a gimme that Shenandoah, Clarinda are gone. They're going to join the Western Iowa Conference.
Would think, yeah.
It just makes sense for them, especially with just the same situation that Audubon was in. So what happens to the Hawkeye 10?
Yeah,
that's the conference that's kind of out there right now that has got some holes to fill.
Yeah, and I've heard, of course, Carroll, and I'm certainly not speaking for Carroll, but Carroll, I've heard, will be one that they will be looking at potentially.
Carroll is the very western edge of the Raccoon River.
It is, and then I've heard Storm Lake might even be a school that they look to pull in. If they get Carroll, Denison, Schleswig, Carroll, Atlantic, not even Harlan, not that terribly far to drive. You just move the conference a little north compared to south where it was at with Clarinda, Shenandoah, and Red Oak. So in Clarinda right now, sounds like they're probably going to stay Hawkeye 10. I think they feel like they've gotten pretty competitive and they're starting to have some success. So
it would shock me if Storm Lake did, because It makes more sense for them to stay northwest. They're closer to that direction, things like that.
Yep, agreed.
So all eyes on Carroll now?
Yeah, potentially.
Have we got this all mapped out now for the next few years?
Until ICAM Manning makes their decision, and then the WIC does. But yeah, if the Hawkeye 10 loses 2 or 3 teams, you heard Trevor talking about you got to have a certain number to feel like you're pretty viable. So they've got to fill those numbers from somewhere.
Yeah, at least this time around, it's not money driven. It's not a financial thing for the school districts. It's what makes sense for us logistically.
Right.
Conferences sometimes get skewed by adding other teams that get left out of other places.
Yeah, this isn't TV contracts, and Fox and ESPN driving all these changes.
They're not going to get $30 million athletic budgets and NIL and all that?
That's cheap nowadays.
Yeah, that's the Big Ten share, not the Big Ten, or the Big 12 share, not the Big 10
and not the Big
SEC.
10 share, yes.
So anyway, expect those decisions. So you said ICAM Manning is deciding on Monday.
They're deciding this coming Monday, and we'll try to reach out and get somebody lined up to join us Tuesday morning next week to give them a chance to talk about their decision as well, whether they go or do not go. So.
All right, you guys have been talking about the All-Star festivities coming up for the summer sports season. You kind of got dates mapped out for that?
Yeah, July the 20th. It's a Sunday, and we chose that date simply because we could have teams still playing close to the postseason around that Saturday, and then the state tournament started on the 21st. And then as soon as that week is over, we go into the dead period where we can't have coaches and athletes together. It's that dead week. So we can hold it after the state baseball and softball tournament. So about the only day we could potentially slide it in is Sunday, July the 20th. It'll be again out at the Carroll High School softball diamond. That's the one by the Aquatic Center. We're going to have the gates opening up about 10:30 or so. We'll have the festivities starting at 11, and we're going to have some changes to this year. Again, with the State Association and the Girls Union approving that, underclassmen, freshmen, sophomores, 8th graders juniors can participate in the All-Star games instead of having one slow pitch softball game where we mix the girls and boys together. If we get enough kids wanting to do it, we're going to play a girls softball slow pitch All-Star game and a boys slow pitch All-Star game. And then we're also going to have that home run derby in there as well with the award ceremony. But we're going to try to keep things moving, so we'll have to figure out the exact number of pitches that everybody's going to get. We don't want to spend 2 hours having the home run derby and then try to cram in, the all-star games for everybody. So now that with everybody able to participate in the games, that's going to probably, help us that everybody will have a chance to be active in something.
So July 20th is the date for that All-Star game. Last night, weather, how would that affect the ball games? I know they're affecting start times tonight already. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we had a lot of games last night. Almost all of our games ended up being 5-inning games or 6-inning games, and not based off of the score, but based off of the weather only and stuff. So, yeah, and then tonight, I can go kind of through the schedule here real quick. I just got another message that I'll update here in a second. But we've had some changes to today's local schedule. The Newell Fonda Coon Rapids Bears baseball game that Mason's broadcasting is now going varsity first at 5:30. That'll be on KKRO with pregame at about 5:15. Riverside at Audubon baseball is now going varsity first at 5 o'clock, and ICAM Manning hosting Missouri Valley baseball is varsity first. That'll begin at 5:30. We also have ICAM Manning softball hosting Missouri Valley going varsity first at 5:30. You've got it's Riverside at Exira Kimballton. Volleyball Audubon in that as well, or not volleyball, but softball. That's going varsity first at 5 o'clock. That'll be down in Audubon. And I just got a text message here from East Sac County. They're now part of a varsity doubleheader in Mapleton, and they are playing at 7:30 tonight. So.
All right, so check the schedule, check the sports website and the mobile app for any changes going forward, because there probably are going to be some. All right, I'm going to throw this at you guys, a little surprise top 5 here for you.
Now, on with the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Nobody does it better than KCIM does. But top 5 teams on the move, on the upswing as we head, about 2 weeks away from some playoffs?
Yeah, pretty much. Playoffs starting right after the 4th of July.
5 teams on the upswing. Start with number 5.
Ooh, you're going to make us rank them?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a countdown, man.
I'm going to say ICAM Manning softball on the rise.
You could defer to Mason to make him.
That was exactly kind of the choice I said after last night as well. Was that?
What was that again?
ICAM Manning softball.
Okay.
I'm going to go Carroll baseball. I know the record, maybe not where they won it, but you've seen some improvement, and I think they're going to continue to win some baseball games. So I'll go Carroll baseball sitting in that number 4 spot.
I'm just trying to think who we all cover still.
I'm going to go Exira Kimballton Audubon softball.
Yeah.
I think they're getting everybody back now, and they've struggled to start the season, even though they were ranked. They dropped below 500.
Yeah, not having the season that they had hoped for.
But now getting everybody back, I think you're going to see them kind of come on as the season goes on. So I'll say Exira Kimballton softball with Audubon in there as well.
Number 2?
It's hard to rank them.
Kemper softball. I'm going to go Kemper softball.
Okay, Kemper softball.
Yeah, and they lost Miley Schaefer, their number 1 pitcher, to start the season, and she's done. But I think that they're exceeding maybe what some people's expectations are because of that.
And you're going to see them tonight against Denison
I'm going to see them tonight over at Denison Schleswig. I'll have that on Kick 106.7. And then, Mason, I'll let you help me out on this one. I'm going to say it's either Glidden Ralston softball, because they've really had a great season so far, and I know they had a tough loss to Woodbine last night, or Kemper baseball is having, I think, a better season than people anticipated as well.
I think it's Glidden softball due to the fact that, Kemper baseball has that tradition of, hey, we're going to start the season a little slower, and then we pick it up, and they were a state contender a couple of years back as well. But when you look at that Glidden softball team, they have a lot of youth on their team, and they don't have all the numbers that you would see in a team like Kemper or something like that. But, they come out there, and they started the season, 8-1, I think, and they're probably undisputedly our best softball team record-wise. Obviously, they fell last night to a good Woodbine team, but that was also for control of that conference.
Yeah, and what really impresses me, I watched them Saturday against Kemper, of course. like 4 8th graders starting on that team, and then some freshmen. So this is a really, really young team that doesn't play like a bunch of young kids. I teased Bryn Renzi, who came up for the post-game interview, and we named her our Culver's Player of the Game. I'm like, you're an 8th grader, and you come up in a clutch situation, and what you do, you just step right in there and get a base hit without even thinking about it. And she's like, I just try not to think about getting nervous,
Yeah. Just all you can do is look at the pitch and try and hit the ball, and that's it. So there you go. That is KCIM Sports Rewind for this week. Catch a podcast available at 1380kcim.com here in just a couple minutes.